Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. This is the follow-up to Top 10, our 10 favorites. So hopefully you'll join us, whether you're watching along live and talking to us in the chat, or just after the fact and talking to us in the comments. We love hearing what everybody else is watching and what you think about what we're watching. So thanks for doing that. And without anything else, I will introduce my co-host for this evening. As always, it is my good buddy, Connor Nielsen. I need to get like an applause soundbite every time I introduce you. But there he is.
Hi everybody. How you doing in the chat? How you doing after the fact? How you doing, DJ? It's good to see you. Wow, did I watch a lot of adventure movies?
This might inform future monthly challenges that we do, because I don't know if I could do this many of one genre again, because we'll talk about it, but it was getting a little repetitive. But
yeah, it's the last week in particular. I just battened down the hatches and went crazy.
Yeah,
I don't know how we want to structure this, because there were a few movies on our Adventure Thru November challenge video list where we talked about all the movies we were going to do that I just didn't end up watching.
Yeah.
But then I also ended up watching movies that weren't on that list that we did kind of talk about a little bit, but I don't know how you did on that front.
That's true. I didn't even grab those down from the shelf, but I will say, yeah, you were a little more ambitious than me. You had like 24, I think, and I only had 20. So I didn't get through. These are the three I didn't get through. So Clash of the Titans. I'll just go ahead and say them. Clash of the Titans, Die Nibelungen, and Thief of Baghdad. Intimidating. This I could have got to, but I just had a lot of Harryhausen. And these are intimidating. These are very, very long movies and silent. And I just kept watching the shorter ones instead of these ones. So I will get to these eventually. Maybe if I watch through some fantasy movies, then I'll throw these in the batch. But those are the ones I didn't get to.
Yes. So I got a big piece of paper that's got all my notes on it. I had 24 movies that I was going through, and I watched 19 of those 24, so plus 2 other ones. So I did not get around to watching Captain Blood, which is the Errol Flynn movie with Michael Curtiz directed. I did not see Seven Samurai. Again, my Kurosawa first viewing of anything Kurosawa is still on hold. I did not see The Mask of Zorro from 1998, the Martin Campbell, not Benicio del Toro, Antonio Banderas starring Zorro movie. I did not get around to watching the Gladiator director's cut because I watched some other Ridley Scott movie this month, and I did not get around to Master and Commander: The Far Side of the World. So those are the 5 I did not watch, but watched a lot of others. So hopefully I can just put those on the docket for next year or sometime throughout the next year. It doesn't all have to be in November, I guess not. But my priorities I did get to, so I'm excited about that.
Awesome. Yeah, so, yeah, like you said, there's not really too much structure to this video. I guess we can talk briefly about the ones that we did watch that are towards the bottom of our list, and then we'll spend the remainder of the video and the majority of the video talking about our top 10 favorites. Was this difficult for you, or did it fall into place pretty easily?
So ranking is like one of my favorite things to do, or historically it's been one of my favorite things to do when I get around to watching like 40 movies in a year. I'm like, oh, I got all these movies I can choose from. How do I like breaking it down? What was interesting about it is there is a glut of movies that I watch they're all part of the same series, and they're all very similar in my mind in terms of quality. And I found it very difficult to rank those. But then there were like a couple of other ones where I'm like, okay, from like 9 through 11, it was really, really difficult to rank those ones. And that's one's kind of rough, because if we're doing a top 10, it's like, there's that one that's almost as good as 10 and 9. So yeah, what do I do? And then there are a few others where it's like 2 or 3 clumps kind of throughout the list that I was a little curious on how to what preferential treatment I was actually doing.
Yeah, so yeah, that was the hardest thing for me this month, I finally did it. I got through all 3 of these box sets, these Harryhausen box sets that I've had. I've been kind of a part of this channel since the beginning. This is one of the first things I talked about. So I finally got through all 3 of these, and that was difficult because they're all B movies, they're all Harryhausen movies, and they're all very similar. So the Sinbads were kind of mixing things up a little bit, but yeah, they were very similar. There's kind of 3 different sections. There was like Harryhausen monster movies, and then there was like Harryhausen fantasy, like adventure movies like Sinbad and Chasing the Argonauts, but they're still very similar. So that was starting to get a little old after a while, so ranking some of those is kind of arbitrary. But yeah, I think for the most part I think I'm happy with my list. I think it'll be all right.
Yeah, I think I did all right. I guess I should have an applaud button for you because you got through all of those 9 movies that have like been this specter haunting your channel that you've just been wanting to get to finally.
No, yeah, I'm very glad I got through all of them, and I actually bought 3 more. Well, including Clash of the Titans, 4 more Harryhausen movies this month, which I'll show off in our November, October and November Blu-ray update.
I saw something like September, October. No, I don't know.
So we'll talk about the things we bought in the last month, so I can show off those. But that means I have all of Harryhausen's movies except for 1, which is hard to get and not like there's not a Region A version. So I'll figure it out how to get that eventually. But I have almost all of his movies. But I guess we'll just go ahead and jump into it. So do you want to talk about any kind of honorable mentions or like runner-ups or just something that stood out to you that didn't quite make your list?
Yeah, I guess I could just like super quickly. I will just sprint through the 11 that didn't make the top 10.
All right.
Because I went all the way through and just ranked all of the ones I watched. So in last place, this one is actually kind of a big shocker to me. It's Die Nibelungen Part 2, Kriemhild's Revenge.
Oh no, that was one I didn't get to. So don't spoil too much about it. But
I'm not going to spoil anything. I'm just going to say I can't believe I finally found a Fritz Lang movie I don't like.
Oh wow, that's big news.
Not only like I don't feel comfortable calling it a bad movie. It's too well made to be bad. I did kind of hate the experience of watching it. And then number 20 is Around the World in 80 Days, the 1956 Best Picture winner, which we talked about. I don't know what it was. I was like, I didn't put this on this list. It's 3 hours. Whatever, I'm putting it on anyway. So I ended up watching all of it. I'd like to talk to you at length about that movie because I know you really like that movie, and I didn't, but I didn't like dislike it. It's just like this kind of odd movie to me that I find more interesting as a cultural artifact. But anyways, number 19, Lone Wolf and Cub, Baby Cart in Peril. Number 18, Lone Wolf and Cub, Baby Cart to Hades. Number 17, Lone Wolf and Cub, White Heaven in Hell. Number 16, Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Number 15, Lone Wolf and Cub, Sword of Vengeance. Number 14, Journey to the Beginning of Time, the movie we did a Criterion Corner on. I just wanted to say that was a very difficult one to place because it's a really good movie. It's also very, very different than any other movie I watched this month. Mm-hmm. And it is like what I guess what I didn't talk about when we did the Criterion Corner was it is so cool. It kind of like put into perspective like, oh, cinema isn't just a storytelling tool. It's like a tool that you can just explore craft in a really cool way. And like that's what that movie really is.
Yeah, so definition of art house.
I have it in like 14, but it's like I don't know where to put this. So I have it at 14. And then 13, Lone Wolf and Cub, Baby Cart in the Land of Demons. Number 12, Island of Lost Souls. And number 11, I'm really bummed out this didn't make the top 10, but it is Ben-Hur, A Tale of the Christ, the 1925 epic silent film. So those were the 11 that did not make the cut.
Awesome. That is really cool. So yeah, I'll talk about, so real briefly, you mentioned Journey to the Beginning of Time. I'll talk about the ones that weren't on my original list. I didn't put these in the ranking just because I was trying to stick to my original list that I had. So I didn't put Journey to the Beginning of Time, but I love this movie, and this would have been pretty high on my list if I had included it. And then the other adventure movie that I watched that wasn't part of my initial 20 that I was attempting, but it just came up randomly with my wife as I watched it with her, Only Angels Have Wings, which I got in the November sale, and it is absolutely an adventure movie, and it's great. I talked about it extensively on our Criterion November video. It's great. It would be pretty high on my list too if I was including it, but I didn't include those just because they weren't on my original syllabus for this month. But the other ones I watched, I'll just pull them out of here. Those all three made my list, so I actually won't include those. I watched all three of the Sinbad trilogy. Harryhausen's. Well, I watched whatever you call 5 in a series. It's not a quintilogy. Quintilogy?
Quintilogy, yeah.
I watched 5 Sinbad movies this month, which was a huge mistake, and I should have stuck with just these 3 because the other 2 I watched, Son of Sinbad and Captain Sinbad, which were not Harryhausen movies, had pretty much no action. Were just like costume pictures, as they call them. They were not good. But yeah, those 2, Son of Sinbad, Captain Sinbad, are probably the bottom of my list. Then I have these 2, which I also watched, which are the Sinbad and the Eye of the Tiger and the Golden Voyage of Sinbad. They're both solid. Like, the Sinbad trilogy is just like solid adventure movies across the board. Like, none of them. I think the one I chose in my top 10 stands out a little bit above these 2, but yeah, they're all around the same caliber of B movie for me. And then some other ones I watched that didn't make my list. It's really sad that this one didn't make my list because this is one of the most famous Harryhausen, at least creature designs, is 20 Million Miles to Earth, which is great, and I watched it with my son, and he absolutely loved it. And every time the people would shoot down the monster, he'd be like, "But I like him. I like the monster." But he loved that one. And then I also watched The 3 Worlds of Gulliver, which is very interesting that it's in this Harryhausen set. I don't think it should be. I think Earth versus the Flying Saucers should actually be in this set because it's before this, and this is like later after one of the ones in the next set. It's a weird. It must be a rights thing or something. But this was in there. There's barely any stop motion in this except for this one crocodile and like maybe one other animal. It's mostly like scale stuff because, you know, Gulliver's super big and they got a bunch of miniatures, which is really cool. But that one just missed my list. And I think that is it. Well, let me see. I pull up my list here. Yeah. Oh, and no, that one made my list. Yeah, that is all the ones that didn't make my list. So that is it. Like I said, I didn't get to Clash of the Titans, which I wish I had. But now I'm ready to go into my top 10, sir. Unless you have any other last words before we dive in.
I do not. So do you just want to do this like I do 10, you do 10, I do 9, you do 9? Is that how we're doing this?
Yeah, we can go ahead and do that. Nathan Snyder in the chat says he remembers grabbing Lone Wolf and Cub from the library, but hadn't gotten around to sitting through them yet. So yeah, if you didn't get from Connor's big spiel, he has the box set from Criterion. He watched all of them in like 2 days, maybe 3.
Yes, 2 days.
Ridiculous. You probably don't recommend that, do you?
No.
Oh yeah, Stephen Murphy says probably should have done the animated DreamWorks Sinbad instead. Yes, I need to see that. That's actually one of the DreamWorks films I haven't seen, and that'll make a complete 7 Sinbad movies. So I need to watch that and do like some kind of video about all 7 Sinbad movies I've seen, because those 2 that I watched were hilarious, and I could actually talk about those for a while. But yeah, so what's your number 10, sir?
My number 10, and like I said, this was hard to kind of kick Ben-Hur off the top 10.
I know, I can't believe that, because you talked about liking that.
That silent Ben-Hur movie is really good. The only thing I think keeping it off the list, though, is that it's just not as good as the 59 movie. Like,
yeah, I haven't seen that.
Like, so. Yeah, the 59 movie I would say like Ben-Hur 25 is really good. Ben-Hur 59 is great. Mm-hmm. And it's like almost, they're virtually structural clones of one. Like, they are very similar from a like plot and structure aspect, and even like performance level. Like, they're doing a similar thing, even though one obviously has sound, but it's just the 59 one is just better. In like every way, it almost is just like, oh, it's just like 20% better.
I know, and that sucks because it's like, oh, they did probably the best they could in a silent movie, and this one comes along, it just does a little bit better, and then everyone forgets that one. It's like, oh. The one thing that the 25 movie does better than the 59 movie is the galley sequence where the pirates show up. That scene is insane. I've seen a lot of silent movies now where people have swords and they just kind of do this, bonk, and then people go, like they're like stabbing people and stuff. I was like, this is insane. Oh,
That part where they rammed the one ship into the other ship, like crazy. But
Yeah.
this isn't about that. Just kicking it off is going to be Steven Spielberg's 2011 film, The Adventures of Tintin.
Yeah.
I watched this last night. This is Spielberg's big return to action adventure, and it's also his animation debut. To date, his only animation. This thing has a behind-the-scenes dream team. It is not only directed by Steven Spielberg, it is produced by Kathleen Kennedy and Peter Jackson. The musical score is done by John Williams, and it is written by Stephen Moffat of Doctor Who and Sherlock fame, and also Edgar Wright and Joe Cornish of Being Awesome fame. So,
good grief, man.
Like, it's insane, and like the cast is like a King Kong reunion with Jamie Bell as Tintin and Andy Serkis as Captain Haddock. Daniel Craig is the bad guy, who is awesome, and he looks just like young Steven Spielberg, which is funny. And overall, it's a really good movie. I just think that like this is obviously below the likes of his other movies that I was on Adventure Through November, but I'm not going to say just yet in case you haven't seen that for whatever reason. But I will say that when it comes to Tintin, it is a cool amalgamation of Spielberg and Jackson, because you can really feel Jackson's influence on this, particularly like in the action scenes. It's a really cool amalgamation of Peter Jackson's Rube Goldbergian like machinery and Steven Spielberg's and then Spielberg's a great action filmmaker, and it feels like he doesn't really have an interest in doing action film anymore. I recently said in my honorable mentions I had Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. It feels like he just does these movies to just kind of do his friends a solid, but he doesn't really have an interest in doing them anymore. But
he's old. He's getting up there.
He's really dang good at it, though. I will say, though, the animation is like a double-edged sword for me because it is that mocap animation. On the one hand, it's a very cartoonish. It's based on a comic strip character, and it is cartoonish, but there is a danger and grit to this movie that like you don't see in other movies like this. Like you don't see murder and alcoholism and like blood and guns, and like you don't see that as like prevalent and integral to the story as it is in this. So like the animation does keep things like, oh, it's kind of light and a little silly and it's animated, but there is a tangible danger in the world that I did find pretty cool. And I don't particularly like mocap animation. It does look kind of uncanny and weird to me. This is the best it's ever looked, where it is just sort of accentuating and cartoonifying realish looking people. So I like that aspect of it. There are a few scenes where it does look like a video game cutscene where there's this big swooping shot through like a location and then it sets in on our main characters, and I'm like, oh, that's in like Arkham City when like you're Batman and you arrive at a new location and the camera does this big, here are all the enemies in the location sort of setting. But I guess I will say though, what's cool about the action in a Spielberg and a Jackson film is that they are exhilarating and they amplify your excitement through the live action. Like they never feel exhausting and they just keep piling the action on. And I think that might have to do with the limitations of live action. The way they're able to like push through those limitations makes it exciting. In Adventures of Tintin, you can feel in real time that these people are like, wait a minute, we've got like no limitations because it's animated. And I will say this movie does get a little exhausting after a while. So I actually had to like pause it when Act 3 started. I'm like, okay, I got to get a drink of water. I got to stretch my legs. This is getting a little much, but still overall solid. Thumbs up. Recommend it.
Nice. Surprisingly, after what you said, it's actually surprising to me that it's still PG and not PG-13.
Yeah, that actually does surprise me.
PG for adventure, action, violence, some drunkenness, and brief smoking. I actually whipped mine out for the thumbnail because I knew you were going to be talking about it. But I need to watch it again. I watched it like once, like in 2011 when I first got this, and I don't remember much about it, honestly. I need to just rewatch it because it seems like a movie I would really like. I love animation, and I love Peter Jackson stuff, so I definitely need to check that out. All right, what is my number 10? My number 10 is the 7th Voyage of Sinbad, the best of the Sinbad saga that I watched this month. Here it is right here. Bada boom. This is the first one that Harryhausen worked on. What is this? 1958. So pretty early. I've seen, not the earliest, I've seen 2 Sinbad movies before this. Apparently, I'm going to be just an expert on Sinbad movies now. But this one's great. Like I said, this is going to be interesting because I'm not going to have as much to talk about as Connor because it's going to be very different. Like 80% of mine were B movies. So it's just, hey, let's watch Sinbad fight a Cyclops. Let's watch Sinbad fight a skeleton, which is an awesome scene. And then he's like, let's watch the Cyclops fight a dragon, which is really cool. So, like, one thing I do want to say about this, it has the worst poster of all time. It's a cool looking poster, but it is the most spoilery poster. It has, like, all 4 of these sentence-long captions at the top. It's like, see the sorcery of Colossa's most evil magician. See the attack of the 2-headed giant rock. See the battle of the Cyclops and the dragon. See Sinbad in his breathtaking fight for survival with the skeleton. Like, it just tells you every single thing. Like, it's like, I don't know, if you think that movies now are just trying to cater to every audience and like get your butts in the seats no matter what in the trailers, like we've been doing that forever, apparently. It's like just tell you everything that's in the movie. But no, it was cool. This one is super bare bones. There's like no character development or like anything. It's just like Sinbad goes on a quest to stop the evil magician, and he wins in the end. Spoiler alert. But yeah, there's a lot of cool monster fights. The stop motion looks incredible. This was like mid Harryhausen's career, and I think it's the best it has looked up to that point. Like earlier, he was doing kind of like science fiction movies with like one monster against like the military, but this one is just like monsters everywhere. Like there's there's like I said, there's a 2-headed giant bird that like picks up people, and you have, like doing stop motion with a flying creature is like crazy because you have to use wires and like hang it down, and there's some points where you can see the wires. I'm sure these movies were never meant to be seen on Blu-ray, but I think it's charming. It looks good, like you talked about earlier with the Journey to the Beginning of Time. Like the craft of the making of it is really cool. The fight scene at the end with the skeleton is awesome. It's good that it was at the end because it's the coolest thing in the movie, and you can see how it directly translates to when he did Jason the Argonauts, the big famous scene where they're like fighting like 10 skeletons. It's like, it starts right here. Sinbad fights 1 skeleton. I will complain about the main character. Unlike Jason the Argonauts, which I'll talk about later, this guy is a dud. He's not charismatic at all. He's no Errol Flynn or Tyrone Power or anything. He's just kind of like there. Apparently he's Sinbad because his name's Sinbad and everybody calls him that. But yeah, he's not very entertaining. He is the same actor that is in the 3 Worlds of Gulliver movie that I talked about. That's not it. The 3 Worlds of Gulliver movie that I talked about. So many Harryhausen movies. This one, he's the same actor in this, and he's actually better in this, which is a little bit later. So I'm hoping he just continues to get better until I watch his other movie that was like 3 years after this. That's like Jack and the Giant Killer. Jack the Giant Killer. It's like based on the Jack and the Beanstalk story. He's in one of those, which is another adventure movie. So hopefully he gets even better by that point. But yeah, this is one of his earlier movies, I think, and he's kind of just a rock, just a good-looking stone that moves the plot along. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. I did watch this one with my son, and he loved watching all the monsters in this. This is where he learned what a Cyclops was because he didn't know what that was, and he loved the dragon and stuff. So yeah, pretty cool. And this is probably the most family-friendly Sinbad movie that I watched. So if you have kids, look for the 7th Voyage of Sinbad. The pretty much every other one was just one of them. What was it? Son of Sinbad? Or Captain? Yeah, Son of Sinbad. It's literally just half-naked women, like, dancing the entire time. It was like 80% that, and then 10% of a fight scene at the end. But no, this one's great. Watch this one with your kids, and I recommend it. It's a good one. one of the better Harryhausen's I watched this month. That's my number 10.
So what you're saying is that one stars A-Rock, not The Rock.
No, and thank goodness the Rock has not done a Sinbad movie yet.
Oh no, we've just spoken that into existence now.
I'm surprised that hasn't happened. Lou Ferrigno did a Sinbad movie in like the 90s. Have you seen that?
No,
it's on HBO
awesome.
Max. I started watching like the first scene. I was like, oh, I need other people to watch this with because I can't watch this by myself. No, not Jack the Giant Slayer, Stephen Murphy. That's the Bryan Singer film, he says. The one where I'm probably one of the only people to see it in theater. No, I saw it in theater too, Stephen Murphy. And yeah, that was a crazy movie.
He said he did a Hercules movie. I know Lou Ferrigno did a Hercules movie. I had no idea he did a Sinbad. I don't remember
what it's called, but I'll have to look it up. Sinbad's, it's hilarious. And they dubbed his voice like completely with another actor. It's not even his voice. It's kind of a shame. But yeah.
All right. So my number 9 is on the AFI Top 100. So you know it's classy. This is, I believe, number 65. It is John Huston's The African Queen, starring Humphrey Bogart and Katharine Hepburn. This movie is pretty darn good. I like it more as a romance movie than as a adventure movie. As an adventure movie, it is more, oh no, we got to go down some waterfalls.
Yeah. It's an elderly person adventure. They got to go down water. They got mosquitoes getting them. They got to...
Oh, Humphrey, please get the mosquitoes away from me. Yeah. So the back of this box sells this as kind of more insane than it actually is. Like the big header says, one of the greatest achievements in the history of cinema is now on Blu-ray. Apparently they went through hell making this because they shot most of it on location in the Congo or some African
and you can tell
country.
too.
Like,
it looks good.
there. Yeah, there are a few pickup rear projection shots that are quite obvious, but a lot of it, in the restoration.
But those are obvious because everything else looks good. That's why those scenes stand out so much. Like if the whole thing was rear projected, then it wouldn't stand out as much. But yeah, I think it looks good, and it starts off real classy, like a 2001 Kubrick film where it just shows like some nature shots of the Congo, which I liked. I did watch this one too. This is the only crossover that we had, which is pretty crazy. But sorry, I'll talk about it later.
Oh no, it's cool. It's cool. Yeah, I liked it quite a bit, and I think just sort of inherently the premise was something I needed to be won over on. My least, or I'm just like I knew what the premise going in was, and it's two people that don't really get along, learning how to get along, because basically he is a blue-collar Canadian man who is just, basically being a delivery mailman and like supply runner on this boat. They're in the middle of Africa, and he kind of goes up and down the river on his boat called the African Queen, delivering mail and supplies to different people. This is during the early days of World War I. Germany has occupied a certain sect of Africa, so has England. She is from England, and basically she is a missionary. Her brother, really, I guess, is the missionary. She's a missionary sister. She's kind of getting up there in age. She's sort of an old maid, as they would call her in that time. And then one day, the Germans kill everybody, but her, or I guess her brother, kind of dies later, or he gets wounded. Anyways, the point is, she's all that's left, and they need to get out of there. And so Humphrey Bogart's like, okay, you and me are like the only people left. We need to like get onto the river to like get out of this part of Africa. But they don't get along. He's blue collar. She's, uptight. He likes drinking, and she's a missionary. Like, that kind of like wacky hijinks ensue. I don't typically like those kinds of movies because I've seen a lot of movies like that. And usually it's just shrill, obnoxious people, and I hate both of them. One is just this belligerent bore. The other is this uptight, nagging lady, and it's just like I don't like either of them, and I just don't want to spend time with them confined on this stupid boat. But I really like these two characters, and I like the way they talk to one another. I liked how their like idea of polite society, even though it's like sarcastic at times, that they maintained that kind of positive, understated demeanor. It was classy, it was elegant, and as a romance, I actually found it very heartwarming, and by the end, I was won over. I thought it was funny, it was charming, and even though it's an elderly adventure, it stirred a little. It stirred enough of those adventure bones in you that I found it to be a satisfying film.
Yeah, I was definitely glad I put it on my list. That's one that I've been meaning to get to for a while. I like Katharine Hepburn because I've seen other movies with her that you haven't seen. So I'm really glad when I first put this in. I was like, because you don't like bringing up baby, and when I first put this in, and I was like, oh no, she's that kind of character. He's not gonna like her again, and he's never gonna watch another Katharine Hepburn movie. But I'm glad she won you over. It's a really cool movie. I didn't know it was so like bleak. I didn't know it was like in the middle of the war, and they're like on this suicide mission. I guess I won't talk about it too much. It does kind of have like a cheesier, more heartwarming ending. So don't let that deter you if you don't like bleak movies. Stephen Murphy says, "Isn't this also on Disney Plus with The Rock and Emily Blunt?" But it wants to be. It definitely wants to be.
If you want to see this movie, like premise, but with the overall structure of The Curse of the Black Pearl. Absolutely check out Jungle Cruise.
Wow, I still have not seen that. But yeah, I'll talk about African Queen a little bit because it is a little bit higher up on my list. But I should have. Yeah, that's the only crossover, so we don't need to do anything. All right, my number 9 is The Gold Rush. What a fun little movie. Delightful movie. I talked about this also in my Criterion video that we did because I just bought this month, and it looks awesome. This is one of the cooler art cases that goes all the way around the back, and they use the mountain as the horizon line to keep all the text underneath, which is really cool. It's got a super cool illustrated booklet. That's a hilarious scene in the beginning where he almost walks off a mountain because he's just like this bumbling, not paying attention kind of character, and he just gets in all these crazy hijinks, and he's going out west. He's looking for gold, and he's up on a mountain, gets all in these in this horrible situation where he's like in this guy's cabin that doesn't want him to be there, and they're like fighting over the cabin, and you find out that he's like a murderer that's like on the run and hiding out, and then he eventually gets to this small town, and meets this girl, and it's kind of a romance. Not my favorite of the Chaplin films that I've seen. Like I said before, I like the Kid quite a bit more, and I like Circus a little bit more. I thought this one was kind of meandery, kind of a little bit long. But as I mentioned before in the other video, there is 2 versions on this disc. So if you like this movie, be sure to get this one. It has the 1925 version, which is the version I watched. And then it has the 1942 version, which is about 15 minutes shorter, that Chaplin released later. And it has sound. It's a talkie, as they say. So instead of the intertitles, it adds the narration that he wrote for it. So yeah, both versions on here. Eventually, I'd like to check out the 1942 version because it's a little shorter and it seems a little tighter. Like some of the problems I had with this version might be resolved in that one. But yeah, I definitely want to watch this again. I watched this one with my son and he loved it. He really likes Chaplin. Chaplin makes him laugh. He's only 3, so silent films are perfect for him because he doesn't really understand what people are saying anyway. So yeah, The Gold Rush. I highly recommend it. It definitely qualifies as an adventure movie, just very different than the other things I watched. So yeah, I recommend it. You need to check out some Chaplin.
I do. I've only seen Modern Times, but hearing you talk about that and The Kid and The Circus, I really want to watch more of his work.
Yeah, I recommend it. That's my number 9.
All right. My number 8 is, hey, what's this? A Lone Wolf and Cub movie? This is the second film in the Lone Wolf and Cub series called Lone Wolf and Cub Baby Cart at the River Styx. This is widely regarded as the best movie in the series. I would have to agree. I will tell you why it was really, really difficult to rank these outside of the second installment is because all of them are distinctly divided into two halves. There's like the story of the movie, or there's like kind of there's like a half of it that is usually dedicated to the overarching like series story, and then another half that is more involved with just an isolated mission that Ito Ogami. That's. I mean, I guess I would say Lone Wolf, but they just call him Lone Wolf and Cub. It's sort of like he's like a bounty hunter mercenary, and so he just kind of goes on these, missions all by himself. And so there will be this isolated mission he'll usually go on in the second or first half, and then you find out that by the end it's tied into the overarching story. They all have this formula. And so when you have stuff like the third movie, which I really don't like the first half of it, but I love the second half of it, and then you have stuff like the fifth one where the first half is, or the first half is kind of confusing, but then by the time you get to the second half, like it all kind of comes together in a neat way. It's really hard to judge these because basically, like, they might be samurai movies and they have like this kind of celebrated history, I guess you could call it. Like they're well remembered. They're influential on Quentin Tarantino and all that. Make no mistake, these are exploitation flicks from the 1970s. So you get the fun blood splatter and whatnot, but you also get some really uncomfortable depictions of sexual violence that really just feel like they're there to get nudity on camera so they can sell it. So the third movie gets off to a really rough start that I did not enjoy. In the first movie, the back half also has a lot more of that kind of lesser, well-aged stuff regarding exploitation cinema. But the second movie is your ticket. This movie is really cool. I think that it has overall the best story. I think the first and second halves are complementary to one another, where I don't much prefer one over the other. The fight scene where there are like these three people towards the end that Ito Ogami has to fight, that stuff's great. The fight choreography, the bloodshed, the kind of father-son dynamic, all of it is at its best in the second film. The first four of these movies, it should be said, came out in 1972.
Jeez.
This was the second one. Yeah, this was the second one to come out in 1972, and it is the best one. So I would say, if you have to watch one, these are all I think you can watch. All of these kind of isolated from one another. I will say, I think the sixth one is better than its reputation as the worst one. I think the worst one is the fourth one, not because it's particularly bad, but because that's the one where you can feel the weight of the formula kind of hanging over the head of the series, where you're like, oh my god, there's two more of these, and they're all kind of the same. So, yeah, overall, I enjoyed my excursion through the bloody feudal landscape. And by the way, Paul Pope's art on this release is dynamite. So yes, Baby Cart at the River Styx, number 8.
Baby Cart at the River Styx. Those have great names.
I also like my favorite is the sixth one, White Heaven in Hell. Takes place, that basically is just the ending, has this giant like battle sequence in the mountains, and it's so cool.
That's awesome. Yeah, I needed to check those out eventually. Spoiler alert, I might have that box set coming to me soon, and we might have to do an addendum to our $1,000 Criterion November haul, because we have problems and we did not stop after I was hoping shooting that video would make us stop, but it did not. All right, my next one is The African Queen. That's my number 8. So I probably should have just talked about it with you because it was so close. But yeah, it's great, man. I don't have much else to add to what you said. It's a super simple plot. They're just going down the river to blow up a warship and help win the war, because there's this area that they can't. The other armies can't get through because they have this big warship blocking this small narrow area in the river. Anyway, that's all they're doing. They're just going down there. It's like a road trip movie, but it's too. I mean, they make it work. Like Humphrey Bogart. Those are the 2 reasons I watched it, was Humphrey Bogart, Katharine Hepburn. That's all I knew about it. I didn't even know the plot like you did, or at least like the setup. So I went in totally blind. Watched this one with my wife, because it seemed like the kind of movie that we would like together. She actually didn't finish it with me. I finished it by myself. But yeah, it's. I will say I learned so much about boats in this movie. Like, same thing with this one. I learned just as much about airplanes and like technical stuff about airplanes in this as I did about that junky old boat. I did not know that was the name of the boat. Did you know that going in?
No, I did not.
That threw me for a loop. I was like, oh, the African Queen is just the name of the boat? What a weird title. Like, that title made me think it was something completely different. Like, I thought this movie was like an old, like Tarzan or like King Solomon's Mines type adventure, like one of those things, where maybe it was like a jewel or maybe it was an actual queen, like, but no, it's just a boat that they're on. And but it was great. I loved it. It was pretty emotional. I felt I mean, Bogart plays the just beaten down, broken, like miserable, when he gets out of the boat and like pulls it, and they just pull all the leeches off of him, and then they get stuck again, and he's just like, he just takes his shirt off and gets back out of the boat again. I was like, oh man. But it's one of those movies where like they can't catch a break, like everything goes wrong. So if you like triumph of the human spirit, and just if you believe that with persistency and like where there's a will, there's a way, then this is the perfect movie for you. And if a little dash of romance too, pretty sweet romance. So I liked it a lot, and that is why it is my number 8.
My number 7 is a Best Picture winner.
Oh,
it is. I think 1935 Best Picture. Yeah. So, sorry, African Queen. This one's a little bit better because it won the award. That is Mutiny on the Bounty.
Oh, I'm excited to hear you talk about this one because this is
19.
I have not seen this or don't know anything about it.
Yeah, so this is 1935. I think this is the 8th Best Picture winner canonically. It stars Charles Laughton and Clark Gable, as well as a man named Franchot Tone. I'm sure that is a French name, and I am just not even going to try to pronounce it. So Franchot Tone. That's what I got. Basically, this is based on a real event, a book that, or at least it is adapting a book that is recounting a real event of the, what is it called? It's not USS, because that's the United States. This is, I think, before the United States. It's the, is it MSH? Whatever the designate is, the Bounty. That's what the name of the boat is. And this was a real-life maritime event when Captain William Bligh of the Bounty was a real bad dude to his crew, and they had to go to the not Fiji, but they had to go to like Polynesian islands to get a stock of like trees so that they could bring it back up to Europe so that they could like plant those trees so they could have that product. But on the way to, I think it might be Jamaica. This was like towards the beginning of the month, so I really don't remember a lot of the fine details like that. But they go to basically a tropical island, and while going there, they endure some really rough flogging and disciplinary action by William Bligh. And he is like almost just like goading and trying to provoke retaliant, defiance, so that he can be justified in punishing them. So he is a sadist. And Charles Laughton, who was Dr. Moreau in Island of Lost Souls, is amazing in this. Apparently he lost weight and so that he could fit the exact measurements that the real William Bligh had of his like costume. Jeez. And like he put in he was just a little bit shorter than the real William Bligh, so he put in like stuff in his boot so he could be the exact height of William Bligh. He wanted to embody that man, and I don't know anything about it, but I believe him. And Clark Gable is the kind of stalwart, respectable first mate, and he even shaved off his mustache to star in this movie. I believe his name is Fletcher Christian. That's the character's name. And then there is there's a man who is also there who is kind of friendly with Fletcher, who's going to Jamaica to help understand their language, to make a dictionary. So he's just kind of there on less of the work of the intended work and more there for a education expedition, and he becomes very important towards the end. But this is a really cool thing because it's a real life event, but they do frame the event as an adventure movie. And characters obviously, as the title would suggest, there's a mutiny. They become actual pirates. Like you see people like wearing bandanas and like having like scimitars and like pirate outfits basically, and it's really really cool. It goes on a little long, but for a movie that is from 1935, I was thoroughly impressed with how well this held up. And like this felt so modern in the energy of the performers, the dialogue, and franchise tone.
See how many
Sorry,
times you
guys.
say that wrong.
He gives a monologue towards the end of this movie that is incredible. All three of the movie's leads were nominated for Best Leading Actor, and I think this is the movie that's responsible. I think this is the movie that's responsible for the Best Supporting Actor category, because like I don't think any of them won because all three of them were just excellent, and I think they kind of split the votes as far as the Academy was concerned. But this movie is great, and I think that we really missed an opportunity to get another. There are 2 remakes of this. We needed a third one in the early 2000s, starring William Spall and George Clooney. Or sorry, Timothy Spall and George Clooney, and we did not get that. But we got this, widely regarded as the best adaptation of that book. And I have not seen the other 2, but I am willing to accept that because this movie is really darn good, and I think you would like it, DJ. The 1930s Strike Back.
Yeah, I love the 1930s. That reminds me a lot of a movie I have seen called The Sea Wolf. Have you seen that?
I have
The
not.
Sea Wolf is another movie with a horrible captain who like is very abusive to his crew, and there's kind of like a mutiny. His name is Edward Robinson, plays Wolf Larson.
I love Edward G. Robinson.
Mm-hmm. I'm telling you, man. Check it out. It is a great movie. The Sea Wolf, 1941. It's another maritime
add that to the list.
Nautical adventure. Less adventure, more just like drama between the main 3 characters. But it's great. My number 7 is found in the second Volume 2 Harryhausen set. And this is the one I recommend the most, by the way. This all 3 of these are going to be in my top 10. This set doesn't have a bad apple in the bunch. This is a great one. And this is why this is the most expensive one to find on eBay. Because it's got this movie, which is, of course, the best one that everyone talks about. Jason and the Argonauts totally lives up to the hype. Totally deserves all the praise that it gets. This is like a perfect, just straight up B adventure movie. Just like go to point A to point B, just like this adventure, then you go to the next one and then do this kind of adventure. We don't do this anymore. Like this is the kind of books I grew up with, like the sword and sorcery, like like Lord of the Rings, like Dragonlance, like those kind of books where it's just like you're going on an adventure. You have like a big group of people and each one has their different strengths, and you gotta go up against this monster and do this thing and then go to this one. This is perfect at doing that. It's also got some cool stuff with like the gods. Like you cut back to Zeus and the other, his wife god that I can't remember her name right now, but they're like playing chess the whole movie, but they're like actually like apparently influencing what's happening, which is pretty cool. There's actually Hercules in this movie is like one of the characters. So like when he's going on his quest, the main guy, I cannot remember his name right now, but I just had it. What's his name? Who plays Jason? Todd Armstrong. He is great. He is what the guy from Sinbad should have been. Like he's still like the kind of stoic, serious, like leader, main character of an adventure movie, but he's more charming. I don't know what it is. Like you like to watch him, and he has to round up his whole crew for the journey to go find this like artifact that's going to save his village. Very similar to like Clash of the Titans, I'm assuming. I've only seen the 2010 Clash of the Titans, and it wasn't great. But this is a lot of fun. The skeleton fight is insane. Like he's got like 10 different stop motion skeletons like running all over the place. There's like these flying harpies in here. There's obviously the giant, iconic golden statue. That's he's not golden. He's like marble and walking around, and like there's some cool miniature stuff there. There's an amazing scene that I didn't even know about, and it doesn't even advertise it. Like nothing I've ever seen shows this scene. There, I guess because it's not a stop motion monster, but there's a scene where they're going down this like narrow river, and there's like it's like in a canyon. There's two chasms on either side, and a giant merman. I think it's supposed to be Poseidon, but it's just like a giant dude with a mermaid tail and no shirt, and he just pops out looking like Little Mermaid's dad, or whatever his name is, King Triton or something. He just shakes the walls, and like all the rocks come down and destroy the boat. It's amazing. That was my son's favorite monster. I did watch this one with him too, and yeah, it's really cool. So I'm excited to check out Clash of the Titans, because that is Harryhausen much later, 20 years later, revisiting the Greek myths. This is 1963. That's like in the 80s. So yeah, I didn't get to that one, but I'm excited to check it out. And I highly recommend Jason and the Argonauts. But you don't need me to do that, because everyone recommends this one. This is like the go-to Harryhausen movie that everyone talks about. So glad I finally got to check it out, because it has influenced a ton of things.
I need to finally sit down and watch that. I know Austin put that on his top 10 fantasy films when you guys did that video.
Yeah.
But I need to finally sit down and watch it, because I do really enjoy Clash of the Titans, and sounds like I would really enjoy that as well.
Yeah, sounds like the same kind of thing.
All right, my number 6 is 1989's Steven Spielberg's film from that year, or one of his films from that year, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
Yeah.
First of all, the 4K set, or the 4K releases of these movies look incredible. So, I guess of the original trilogy, this might actually be, in revisiting, my least favorite of them.
Wow.
But like that's really hard to say that, because it's not the worst one. Like, I don't think any of them are like the worst one. Like, I just think that of the original trilogy, it's the one that plays it the most safe, although I think it's deliberately doing something with that. But it is, I think, just as far as like from an ambition level and an artistic level, to me it feels like Spielberg's like, I'm kind of over this part of my career. I want to, like, the adventure part of my career, I want it to go riding off into the sunset. Let's have a nice big last go around, and let's do it. Because you know how I said it, like, it kind of feels like when you watch his later action adventure movies like Kingdom of the Crystal Skull and Adventures of Tintin, it feels like he's just kind of doing everyone a solid because they want it, and he's just kind of happy to appease them. This feels like him going, all right, I'm getting the last of it out of my system. Let's have a good time and call it a day. That being said, it's still a great movie. It's really entertaining.
Yeah. It's so cool.
It is stupid entertaining. It is like, there is a scene, I think everyone knows, on a tank that is exhilarating. The sort of casting of Sean Connery as Indiana Jones' father, and they have their little banter. If you made that today, it would be annoying, and you would hate the father character. In this movie, it rocks. And as far as like the structure of it, I know people always say, well, James Bond was a big influence on Indiana Jones. So having him as the father, Sean Connery as the father, the original James Bond, that really adds something to it. No, I think this movie, like the meta-narrative angle of it, is that it is approaching Indiana Jones as a James Bond style, because it knows that the formula. It knows that all the beats that it's going to hit, and instead of just like kind of playing it lazy, it kind of plays into that, and it's sort of like kind of trying to satisfy you and give you what you want, but not in a way that feels hacky and lame and boring. It's still it is kind of playing it safe, but it's doing it in a way that doesn't feel like they're sacrificing a well-constructed film. So I really like this movie a lot. It's the one I have actually the least amount to say, but I really appreciate how not action-oriented the finale of the movie is. Like, you get the big, awesome tank scene, but there's still like a large stretch getting to the Holy Grail that is quite fun. And I think that it's really good. I don't. X Marks the Spot is one of my like favorite moments from the movie, and it's probably the funniest of them. And it is a thoroughly fun movie that is trying to be. And I think that's what like its top priority is. It's got great action scenes. That's why you're there. It's got a great feeling of adventure. So that is why Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade is my number 6.
Sorry, I'm muted. And you also believe that that Wonder Woman 84 did just as good of a tank scene. That's what you told me after you saw it. So we've got a Wonder Woman 1984 defender over here with Connor Nielsen.
Hey, I'm a reformed.
No, yeah, he has since seen the
Woman
light after his first. I don't know what you were on when you saw it the first time, but I need to get some of that because he loved that movie the first time you watched it.
Hey, look, I was a little tipsy. It was Christmas. It was Christmas. I was with my family. Yeah,
that's crazy. That's been a year already.
It was COVID, so it was like the first time I was really with my family for the first time. We were all at home. I had a little something to drink, but I had a great time watching it, and I think I let that affect my viewing experience. What's your number 6,
you've seen the light. All right, my number 6 is, and I think I'm alone on this one. Like, this is not very highly reviewed on Letterboxd, but I enjoyed the crap out of this, and it might be because this was the first one I watched, one of the very first ones I watched. At least this is definitely the first. This is the first of the Harryhausen movies, so this is the first one I've watched, and it's the cover right there of the box set. It is It! Came from Beneath the Sea. What a great, fun, awesome movie. So this scratches that itch that if you know the movie Them, which I know Connor loves the movie Them, basically about giant ants due to like nuclear fallout, grow really big. Anyway, this is like that story, but it is more realistic, which I was surprised by. Like, it's very realistic. I mean, obviously the science isn't exact, but they do a good job of explaining it. Like, it's just a giant squid, which exists, and they're down deep, deep in the ocean. Nothing happens to it. It doesn't grow to be this giant monster. It's just a giant squid. And the explanation is really cool. How we actually follow scientists the whole movie, which is really cool. We follow these two scientists, this guy and this woman here. These are the two main characters, and then the third main character is this military guy, just kind of a love interest, it's like a love triangle type thing, but it's not annoying with it. It's actually pretty good. And the main scientists figure out that the reason that this giant squid is coming, and it's like straight like the Kraken from the second Pirates movie, where like there's just a ship and we just see it go and then just pull it down underwater with all the people. It's such a cool scene. There's a lot of cool scenes in this. Very minimal, which I found refreshing and kind of lent itself in the favor of Harryhausen's technique, especially because it's one of his earlier ones. So it's just kind of it waits the whole movie to show you the monster, but when you see those tentacles come up, it's awesome. And the explanation for why he's coming to the surface to eat humans and other things is because the what is it? Which war does this take place in? So radiation from the H-bomb tests has caused the giant squid to give off this kind of its natural like cloaking thing, like what hides it from prey. It's ruined by it. I'm not explaining it well at all, but so the prey can see him coming and they all have evacuated and left. So he has his food source is dried up. He has no food. So he has no choice but to come up to the surface. Because usually giant squids are like way down in the depths. But it's really cool how they explain it, and obviously the scene at the end where he finally comes out of the water and like destroys the clock tower, and I think the Golden Gate Bridge. This actually takes place in California, I believe. That's a cool scene. He's like climbing up the bridge. He's out of the water. It's really cool. I highly recommend this one. If you like Them or any other science fiction movies where we cause the problem with war, usually, and then the animals or the natural kingdom fights back, I highly recommend this one. It's a really good one. It Came from Beneath the Sea. That's it. That's my number 6.
I will absolutely want to watch that. Doesn't that at some point take place in Oregon?
Yes! I didn't even mention this. I got an Oregonian here on the call with me. One of the sightings, the kind of mid-movie sighting, is that's kind of the weirdest part, is like they're kind of having a budding romance, the scientist woman and the military guy, and he's trying to like get her to stay with him, and like he's trying to turn her around, and they're at the beach investigating like some footprints and some sightings, and in Oregon they drive there, and then they just decide to like get in swimsuits and sit on the beach and like kiss kiss each other and like talk and stuff, and then whoa, he comes right out of the Oregon coast. So, I mean, you have to see this as a resident. You got to see it.
I mean, I love seeing Oregon represented on the screen, and hey, I've never heard of a giant monster, let alone a Harryhausen. That's some clout right there, baby.
Yeah, man, you got to represent your Portland peeps.
Okay. My number 5, I don't have a copy of because I streamed this one, and
way to contribute. You're contributing to the downfall of physical media. So thanks a lot.
Yeah, sorry everybody. You know, there was a Criterion sale. That's all I can say. All of my funds needed to go to there.
I'll mention real quick. We got a new viewer tonight, Justin Gerlach. He says, "I'm really enjoying this so far. Found your channel by looking at Criterion Haul videos." So he found our latest November haul, and he's joining us tonight. So welcome, Justin. Good to have you.
Yeah, good to see you, Justin. Glad to have you. But my number 5 is Michael Mann's The Last of the Mohicans.
One of my dad's favorite movies.
This is such a dad movie. That does not surprise me that this is like a lot of people's dad's favorite movie, because
which is funny because my dad doesn't watch dad movies. Like, he doesn't watch action movies, or like, I think it's less of a dad movie than like Die Hard or something. Or like, what was that one Ford versus Ferrari that's like the quintessential dad movie that just came out? He definitely doesn't watch car movies, but I think it's historical fiction, right? It's based on a novel. I think it's less of a dad movie than some other ones.
It's also, I think, something like the 9th adaptation of Last of the Mohicans. It's also the last adaptation of Last of the Mohicans, and I can understand why, because they did a really good job. So I've not read the book. I don't know about a lot of what it is. This is very much historical fiction playing loose with historical fiction, and it almost in a certain way feels like a fantasy, because it does sort of, while there is a sweeping majesty to the way Michael Mann shoots this movie, it does sort of feel like there's an undercurrent of melancholy that is like kind of yearning for what could have been. The Mohicans do sort of feel like this in-between tribe of people where they are both native and European, and they sort of feel like this like group of people that have like made peace, but they're dying off, and that feels very like literate. You know what I mean? Like, it feels like a writerly touch there.
Yeah, literary.
These people, literary, and like, oh, like it's yearning for what could have been. Where this was before, America declared independence, so you had both France and England fighting over who would take control of this continent called North America, and in doing so, the Pilgrims were being oppressed by the French and the British, but also you had the Native Americans being oppressed by the same people, and so you sort of had this two people being united by common enemies. But as we know, we didn't exactly treat the natives very well either. So like the Mohicans as a people sort of feels like this like kind of fantastical element. I don't even know if the Mohicans actually existed or not, but the way they're depicted in this movie is interesting. So you have Daniel Day-Lewis in the lead, who's great, and he is falling in love with the daughter of a British military man, and so he's helping them, but he's also helping people in the countryside, and he's trying to make sure that everyone who's not involved in the war is like safe and staying alive. And it's an adventure. Like, they go from like location to location to location. There's brilliantly staged action, and I thought the romance was legitimately good. It's not. I talked about this a lot. I wrote a pretty lengthy Letterboxd review on this. Romance, I think, is the secret weapon of epic cinema, and I think that when it comes to this movie, it does have like epic qualities to it, but it is more of an adventure movie than like a true blue epic like Ben-Hur or something. Mm-hmm. But I think that romance is like, so sorry, I guess I should say, when you go to see like a night at the movies, like a big epic adventure, you want everything. Action, humor, romance, laughs, tears, cheers, you want everything, right? Like that's kind of like the big sell of big movies. Like that's like what Marvel movies, right? They try to appeal to everybody. Like, and that's it's not just Marvel movies. It's every big movie that I could name going back. It's Star Wars. It's The Matrix. It's like it's everything, right? But with this, The Last of the Mohicans. Sorry, I guess I should say, jumping back. I think the ingredient that is kind of the secret weapon of big like 4-quadrant films is romance. And I think that, you know, if like a filmmaker's heart is really in that story, it really comes through in the romance, because that is kind of the heart of the characters. And like a filmmaker should put some of their own love into that love story. Or maybe it's not necessarily that. Like romance is not just love, right? Like it is what we like in real life, we romanticize love, and so we kind of call a love story a romance. That's kind of what we do as humans. But like Michael Mann has just this insane passion for this landscape and these people and this time, and like there's like a love of just everything in front of the camera that is palpable, and there is a love story at the heart of it that is, while you could call it melodramatic and like undercooked or whatever, because of the environment that they're being swept up in, I absolutely believed it. And the more conventional elements are totally earned and feel like poetic, because every other aspect around that is very detailed and smart and subversive. It's really dang good. I need to watch more Michael Mann, because the only other Michael Mann movie I saw before this is like Black Hat, and that might be the worst movie I've ever seen in my life. This was great. I need to watch Heat. I need to watch Collateral. I need to watch Thief. I need to watch Manhunter. I need more Michael Mann. Last of the Mohicans is great.
That's awesome. I need to watch that. I watched that, I think, fresh out of high school when I was first getting into movies, and I don't remember much about it. I think I would appreciate it a lot more now. But that was your number 5?
That was my number. I guess I should say really quickly, the first act is a little sloppy. There are scenes that will start off where it's like a wide where there's like 8 characters in a frame. No one is the subject of the shot, and characters just start talking, and you're like, what? Like it's really confusing at first, but once the ball gets rolling, it's cool. Sorry, but yeah, number 5.
Cool. My number 5 is also in that Volume 2 Harryhausen set. It is First Men in the Moon. What a great movie. And this is, I know, reminded you of, I don't know if you got to Robinson Crusoe on Mars, but this definitely looks just like that. I know that wasn't on your initial list, but I'm eventually going to check that out. If it's anything like this, I'll love it, because this is awesome. This is based on H.G. Wells. Right here on the back it says, only H.G. Wells could have conceived it. Only the space age could have created it. It is an H.G. Wells book. Basically, it's. I'll just give you the premise. It's the first men landing on the moon. We're in the ship right as they land. That's how the movie opens. They land on the moon. They're like hopping around. They and this is before. This is 64. That's right before, right? A few years before. So they're hopping around, and they find this letter that says, "Land founded for Her Majesty the Queen, 1899." They find this piece of paper on the moon. So like, what is this? So they're like, and it has the names of the people on it. So they transmit it back to Earth. That's one thing that we didn't apparently understand in the space age 60s movies, was like, apparently you can talk to Earth in like 2 seconds. Just tell them things. but that's not how it works. But anyway, they tell the people at Earth, and they track down the woman. She's actually passed away, but the man, one of the men who was on the only one who's still living, is in like this nursing home, and he's like crazy, and everyone thinks he's nuts because he's been talking about how he went to the moon, and nobody believes him. So basically, they sit down with him, and he just tells his whole story, and that's what the movie is. He's like, you gotta get him off the moon. You gotta get him off the moon. There's these monsters up there, and he's freaking out, and he tells him his story. Basically, there's like this wacky inventor guy who is played by Lionel Jeffries. He plays the Joseph Cavor, who's this like, wacky, the classic stereotype of like a wacky, absent-minded professor, inventor kind of guy, who's great. He like steals the movie. He's the main character is kind of kind of just bland main character guy, who's just like, oh, we gotta kill the aliens. But the obviously the inventor guy is just like, he's like, we gotta figure out what this is, and he's interested in the science and everything. But he comes up with this invention that's kind of hilarious, and I don't know how close this is to H.G. Wells's novel, but because I like to read that one, I haven't read that one. But it's basically like this cream or like this gel that you just put on stuff, and it just reverses the pull of gravity. So he has the main character like put it on a chair, and the chair just goes whoop to the ceiling. So he figures out this way. That's what this thing is. This is their spaceship. It has like these shutters that come down on all like 10 sides of this decagon type shape, and when the shutters come down, all the gel is like on there. So as soon as the shutters come down, then it just floats up, and apparently it floats up until it lands on the moon. So it's hilarious. And there's like this really cool, this is very different. This was like a breath of fresh air for all of the Harryhausen movies I was watching, because the creatures are like these bug creatures that are living on the moon. They look like, they're just like people in costumes. They're just like bug costumes, but then like the stop motion where it comes in is like these giant caterpillar things that are massive, and they're really cool. Then the coolest thing is the ending, where it doesn't really end with like this big fight action scene. It ends with the professor guy talking to the leader of the bug people, and he's like he's like studying about man, and he's like, you guys destroy everything. It's like classic sci-fi stuff. So he's like, now that you know we're here, I can't let you leave, and like grabs him, and well, he doesn't grab him because the boring main character guy swoops in and grabs him, and they get in the ship, and they fly away. But it is perfect for this month. It was really fun. It's basically a Jules Verne type story. Like Jules Verne wrote Trip to the Moon like way before H.G. Wells. It's like a Jules Verne story, but written by H.G. Wells and then translated by 60s space age adventure movies. It's great. I really enjoyed it. It's really funny, and it's a good time. I recommend it. First Men in the Moon. Definitely the oddest. It definitely stands out the most in these Harryhausen box sets. It's very quirky and fun.
I should absolutely check that out. That sounds so much fun.
And
just based on that poster alone, just awesome.
I know, and that's actually what takes the box art, the box set art, over Jason the Argonauts for some reason. This awesome art is from this movie. You can see the little spaceship back there and the moon, surface of the moon, them under it. It's really cool. I like that they did that. There's the alien leader guy in the crystal thing.
Oh,
it's cool.
Man, that looks cool. All right, number 4. This was hard deciding between 5 and 4, because 5 was Last of the Mohicans. It's probably a better movie than this next one, but I didn't want to have 2 Indiana Jones movies back to back. It is Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. Guys,
you're gonna get fired from, like, the internet's gonna come after you putting Temple of Doom over Last Crusade.
This movie rules, guys. I guess I should say I hated this movie as a kid, and I don't blame my younger self.
Yeah.
This movie's basically a cruel prank for children. But when you're older and you're kind of in on the joke
and jaded,
it's a pretty funny joke. Is the movie #problematic? Oh yeah. There's a lot about, like, yes, there are problems. Like, it's pretty racist. I think like it's trying to say something about how pulp adventure, like fiction, did sort of help contribute to Orientalism of East Asian cultures, and it is trying to, like, I think trying to examine that, like, yeah, the good Indians are the kind of feeble ones that need someone to come in and save the day for them, and the bad Indians are like these insane monsters. And the movie tries to have this element of, oh, the bad Indians are bad because of colonialism, but doggone it, wouldn't you know it, colonialism saves the day at the end. Yeah, that stuff isn't really good, obviously. That being said, adventure is often lumped in with action. And I think a solid adventure movie, I think maybe requires some memorable, exciting action. As an action movie, as an example of spectacle, Temple of Doom might be one of the best movies ever made in that regard. It is a consistently exciting, legitimately impressively dark movie that is, I think, pretty devilishly fun from beginning to end. The cruelty that it subjects its audience to is a sort of gleeful mean-spiritedness that I was absolutely in on its wavelength. You not only have to see like Short Round, like a little kid in Indiana Jones, you're a hero, almost gets squashed by like a death trap. Like it almost does it all over again, and I bust out laughing. When I was a kid, I hated that because I was like, that was so stressful. You tricked me out into thinking I'd have to go through it again. But the minecart chase, like, is exceptional. The ending on the bridge is killer. Indiana Jones with one sleeve torn off in a machete is the best Indiana Jones. But I love how red the movie is. I love the production design. I love, like, I don't know, again, how legitimately dark it's willing to go. It's like, there's a part where Indiana Jones is back. Like, he gets turned into a zombie, a voodoo zombie, basically. And there's a part where, like, he's getting whipped and like Short Round's getting whipped and Indiana Jones is a zombie, so he backhands Short Round and like they're sacrificing Willie Scott and you're like, geez, this is getting bad. And then but then Short Round like kind of saves the day and brings Indy back. And there's a part where Indy basically like kneels down and apologizes to Short Round, and it feels like the movie apologizing to the children in the audience saying, don't worry, we'll make it worth it. And there's a shot where a mine cart with a light in the front of it is like getting carted up, and it's sort of revealing Indiana Jones as he's stepping out from the darkness being lit by the mine cart. DJ, let me tell you, it is a moment of triumph, equal to Gandalf arriving at Helm's Deep in Two Towers.
Whoa.
You like I legitimately started applauding and cheering. It was so exciting. And like once the tide gets turned and Indy is back and it is a non-stop action thrill ride, it is some of the best action I have ever seen put to screen, and so much of it absolutely holds up. The miniature work is impressive, the set is impressive, the action is great. If you're a fan of like Sam Raimi, this doesn't feel like, I don't think Spielberg was looking at Sam Raimi, but this feels like it's tapping into a lot of the same thing, but like kind of not as gleefully manic as something like Sam Raimi or Peter Jackson, but absolutely willing to go to like the kind of dark humor. Like when you're an adult, the darkness is kind of funny. But yeah, it's pretty #problematic, but oh my God, is this movie exciting and brilliantly crafted. So and they took risks. Even like everything up to the opening in Shanghai is incredible and fun and like gleefully manic. Yes, I kind of love Temple of Doom, and I can't believe I'm saying that now because I hated this movie as a kid.
Yeah, I had the same thing. I watched it younger, and I did not like that one. But I'm interested to go back and check it out. It actually has a lot of similarities to the 1942 Jungle Book, which I have seen now, which kind of starts the same way. After the like casino action scene. But yeah, I'll have to check those out at some point. I'll have to go back and watch all three of those because I've only seen them once. So I'm going to go back to Jules Verne land, kind of going along with this movie that we watched, which was very heavily inspired by his works. This is actually a direct adaptation. It is The Mysterious Island. I don't know how much you know about The Mysterious Island, but this is great. It's actually, I didn't know this, but you know Captain Nemo. Everybody knows Captain Nemo from the 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea story. But there's actually a Captain Nemo trilogy, which I did not know. He kind of comes back in two other movies, or two other novels by Jules Verne. This is Mysterious Island. This is actually the third, though. And there's not the first two. So, which is weird. This is it's a whole thing. Like, there's some, I watched the bonus features on these. These indicator sets are really great. They have a ton of bonus features, and there's a lot of like interviews where they talk about it. There was one guy who was really insightful on this one, where It came out around the same time, after not long after the 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea that Disney put out. That's like a big classic. But Disney never made the sequel, which is called In Search of the Castaways. And this is the third one in the trilogy. So you've kind of got, 20,000 Leagues in the public consciousness recently because there was the big Disney movie. But then you have this. So it kind of gives you like just a brief synopsis of like who Captain Nemo is. Like everyone knows who he is in the story. But then you find like this cave where this character has been living, and like you find his notes and stuff, and you get a brief like summary of that second book, which I think it does a great job of working as a standalone piece, not having to see those other read those other two books or having seen movies based on those. So I really like this one. This is I think this is my favorite of the 9 Harryhausen movies I watched this month.
Whoa!
So this is at the top for me. I love Jules Verne, and this is one that actually, even if you took the giant monster fights out, would still be an interesting movie. So that's why I loved it. It's really cool. It's about these soldiers that are like, I think 4 of them are Union, and 1 of them is a Confederate soldier. They're like breaking out of a Confederate like prison, and one of the guys just gets caught up. Gets caught up in the balloon as they escape. They escape in the balloon, so they have to like learn to, get along with each other. They've been like brainwashed their entire life to hate each other, or not their entire life, but like they're in a war with each other. So that's an interesting dynamic. They land on this mysterious island that no one knows what it is, and you find out eventually, spoiler alert, I do recommend watching this, but I kind of have to talk about it. You find out eventually that Captain Nemo, has been using this island for his experiments, and they kind of pull in, I don't know if this is in Jules Verne's original novel, I don't think it is, but you know that idea from H.G. Wells's book, Food of the Gods, where he's kind of using science to make food giant, like much larger, to feed like the hunger problem in the world. So Captain Nemo is growing giant food on this island, and it's causing giant animals. So there's like a giant crab fight, which looks awesome. And I thought while I was watching it, I couldn't tell if it was stop motion or a real crab. It's because it was both. They hollowed out a crab carcass and put the armature in it to animate it, and they used a real crab in the fight. So it looks great. That's a really cool scene. There's other giant animals. There's a giant nautilus, which nautiluses are like this big. They're like, it looks like an ammonite from Pokemon. It's like a giant shell with like a bunch of tentacles coming out. They look horrifying if they're giant. So it's really cool. It's like you get to see all these little things that are just turned huge. There's actually one holdover from an earlier script that is kind of weird. It doesn't make sense. It's like a dinosaur bird. It's actually the same bird that's in, remember that terrifying bird that's in Journey to the Beginning of Time? So there's that one scene. So it's like everything's just giant modern day animals, but then there's like a dinosaur bird on this island for some reason. So that scene was a little weird. And they also play it for comedy. Like the score gets really funny in that scene. So it's funny. It's a good scene, but it doesn't fit really. But no, I really like this one. This is a classic, just kind of like I said, Jules Verne adventure, and Harryhausen just is kind of the icing on the top for this one. But yeah, I don't want to say too much about it because I did give a lot away, and there's quite a bit more that happens at the end of that one. So yeah, that's The Mysterious Island. Or actually, just Mysterious Island. I thought it was The Mysterious Island until I watched it, and it's just Mysterious Island. But yeah, that's interesting. I highly recommend it. Check it out.
How is The Rock in that movie?
Can we stop bringing up The Rock?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about Journey to the Mysterious Island.
I did not see the Rock Vanessa Hudgens piece of cinema where he was replacing Brendan Fraser from the first one. Wow. That duology did not make it on my list this month, but maybe I'm missing out.
I can't say anything. I haven't seen either of them, so for all I know.
I've seen the first one, and that's probably what this is based on. They just had to put Journey to the Mysterious Island because it's the sequel to Journey to the Center of the Earth. And people are dumb. If you
Yeah.
don't tell them that it's Hunger Games, part 1, then they won't know that it's connected to the Hunger Games franchise. But anyway.
So what's kind of cool about the James Bond movie? They just call it No Time to Die. It's like, yeah, we market it like a James Bond movie, so you know it's a James Bond movie.
Yeah, you
There
don't have to
go.
call it James Bond 39, No Time to Die. But yeah, that's the end of that set. Highly recommend this set. That's First Men in the Moon, Jason the Argonauts, and Mysterious Island. Really cool set. And the movies are great. If you can find them individually, also just check out those movies. They were fun.
I should absolutely seek those out. Those ones actually, I mean, sound the most interesting to me. So I will.
And that is the
absolutely
end of my B movies. My top 3 are movies that I'll have that I can actually probably talk a little bit more coherently about. But no, I had a good time. Like I said, I probably wouldn't, like you with Lone Wolf and Cub, like binge all of these in 1 month again, because it's kind of like watching 60s Batman or some other episodic television show that was not meant to be binged, because they are very similar. But yeah, I enjoyed it and I made it through. So I can finally put those up on the shelf with pride and be like, I have seen all of those. And I'll probably break those out many more times to watch with my kids. So I'm glad I got those. Even though I paid a lot of money for the Sinbad one, and then it came right back in print right after I got it.
Oh.
But anyway, what's your number 3?
Number 3 is Die Nibelungen, Part 1, Siegfried.
See, I'm so jealous, man. I gotta check this out. I didn't know you got the Blu-ray. I guess you would have to. It's not streaming anywhere.
Surprise. Yeah, I did.
I'm still sealed. I'm ashamed. I was so jealous of Connor that he got to this 4-hour and 40-minute movie. At least it's in 2 parts. Is it on 2 discs?
Yeah, well,
or is it just one?
It is. It is.
Because there's no mention of it.
Well,
no mention of it being 2 parts at all. Is it very
Yeah.
structured that way?
Well, and that's the thing. These are 2 different movies. And that's honestly like
interesting.
Part of the reason why the second part really rubbed me the wrong way, because it is a sequel to a movie that is not the first movie.
What?
The first movie is excellent. Siegfried is this really awesome silent epic that is huge. I saw people comparing like it's even bigger than, like, it's more impressive than the Lord of the Rings. I wouldn't go that far, but it is awesome. And,
it's very highly reviewed on Letterboxd. That's where I first found out about it. It's got like a 4.1 or something, which is
and I found out about it through you. So thank you for letting me know about it. It is basically it is the story about a man named Siegfried who is the son of King Sigmund, and he finds out about in the Nibelungen people live, like the Burgundy kings, they live in Worms, or Worms as it's spelled, which is like the kingdom on the Rhine, in another like part of the country. And so he travels to become this great warrior. He builds, the first scene is him building this awesome sword that is so sharp, like somebody holds it still, throws a feather in the air, and as the feather drops, it gets cut in half.
That's
and
awesome.
They don't even move. It's the kind of thing Zack Snyder wishes he put in his movies. It's so cool. And what basically he hears story of this Princess Kriemhild in Worms, and he's like, she will be my wife. And like if you're like me and you love so this is directed by Fritz Lang, written by his then wife Thea von Harbour. She later went on to be affiliated with the Nazi Party. He later went on to very much be anti-Nazi. So this recontextualizing their projects, the insane number of projects they did together, is going to be fascinating for me to like, because I mean she's the screenwriter and a lot of the she's adapting a lot of the books she's written. Like she wrote the book Metropolis and adapted it to a screenplay. He's the director that like he put the final stamp on it, and like it's like and these movies have been widely like interpreted as pro-fascist or anti-fascist. Like it's very fascinating to like look at it from that angle, but just even taken on its own as a work of just like incredible silent filmmaking, this feels like Siegfried is to the fantasy epic what Metropolis would be to science fiction. It is huge. It is bombastic. It is a Fritz Lang movie, and it is throwing its bombast behind what becomes a very like complicated Shakespearean tale about like power and like naivete and like the way people become pawns of other people and like desires. Like it is really cool, and like how it becomes this really interconnected story between four primary characters. And like Siegfried might be the stalwart, like ripped, handsome hero. He's no angel. And like the antagonist who eventually becomes the antagonist of the film, that character, like I was kind of on their side because I completely understood their motivation. It's a really impressive film that I was kind of floored by. I still prefer Metropolis because that movie just influenced so much of my DNA, and I've only seen this movie one time. But I think this might go on to become one of my favorite films. Like, this movie is great, and you should absolutely watch this. And what's also awesome is that the movie itself, like Siegfried, kind of has the symmetry to it. I don't ever need to watch the second part ever again and be horribly disappointed by it. So, yes, I would say Die Nibelungen Part 1 Siegfried is my number 3. Aces.
That's awesome. No, that's really cool. I'm so glad you liked it because I really want to check that out soon. So hopefully sometime early. The rest of the year I'm just going to be watching Christmas stuff, but hopefully sometime early 2022 I can check that out. All right, my number 3. I also do not have a copy of, unfortunately, but it's not the Sea Wolf, which I mentioned earlier. It is the Sea Hawk. I'll throw up a picture here. The Sea Hawk with Errol Flynn. Oh my gosh, what? Errol Flynn, I don't know like who his agent was or if he picked all his projects on his own, but he like never picked a bad project, man. Everything I've seen him in is so great because you just watched Adventures of Robin Hood this month. I've also seen him in Captain Blood, which is also great. Also stars Basil Rathbone, who's in the Robin Hood. But this is Errol Flynn in the Seahawk, and this is basically, I think it's a true story. It's basically it's like a wartime. It's less adventure-y, more like wartime historical. Maybe not epic, just kind of historical, like drama. But it's definitely got its epic moments, and it is really cool. The swashbuckling is kind of turned down here, and it's more. There's a lot more like you talked about the scene in Ben-Hur when they got the two ships crashing and going crazy. This opens with that. That's like the opening action scene. Like we're on this like Spanish ship. It's basically the Spanish versus the English, and the Spanish they have a pact. They're like joined, but the Spanish is trying to like backstab them and overturn England. And the Queen is a main character throughout, and she kind of has the Seahawks are like these kind of buccaneers that she has. It's like it's like a military force that's not the main military force. It's like this backdoor military force that she has that is doing things behind the scenes. So the very first scene is kind of Errol Flynn's character going rogue with the Seahawks, and they just like attack this Spanish ship. And talk about another galley scene. Like there's a galley scene that opens it. They're all English like prisoners that are rowing the Spanish ship, and then Errol Flynn just comes in. It's like the scene from the Pirates of the Caribbean, the second one, where they're like attacking like ship versus ship, and they're like blowing holes in the side of it with cannonballs, and then they like swing on ropes, grappling hooks like onto the ship. It's like taken straight from this movie. Like it's insane. Like they all swing over. They like take it down all the Spaniards. They break all the Englishmen free that are down in the galley, take the whole ship prisoner, which causes a bunch of political problems with the Queen, and she has to kind of like not condone anything that Errol Flynn's doing, and he gets kind of Errol Flynn is basically going to do a sneak attack on the Spaniards in like Central America, and then so the Queen lets him do that, but then they actually find out about him because they go to his map maker's shop, which reminds me of Ollivanders from like the Harry Potter movies. It's this really cool Mac paper shop. Anyway, it doesn't work. His whole plan gets messed up. He gets ambushed, and then he becomes a prisoner on a galley. So like for the middle half of the movie, he's just rowing Ben-Hur style. And then the best scene in the movie, well, there's a lot of good scenes, but one of the best scenes in the movie is this like really suspenseful scene where they're trying to break out of the galley. Like he gets a hold of a knife. He's trying to like get his chains free, and they have the guy at the front keeping the rhythm for them to row. He's like sleeping, and they're like trying not to wake him up as they're breaking out of the galley. And then after they break out of the galley, they like go from boat to boat in the harbor, like sneak killing one person at a time. Like they'll like sneak up behind a guy and like take him out, and then they'll all like sneak up behind another guy. They're like barefoot and like not wearing much clothes because they've been in a galley for months. But then it ends like as you want an Errol Flynn movie to end, where he like sword fights the final like Spaniard military boss in this like epic, it's like in a castle, like they just run around an entire castle. They're like going from like room to room, and he's fighting like 3 guys at once at a couple points, and it's so cool. Errol Flynn is the man. Like you said when you talked about Robin Hood, he's just so incredibly charming. You always rooting for him. Even I don't know, he should have played a bad guy, because he would have absolutely been a bad guy that you would have loved to root for, because I don't know what it is about him, but he's super charming. So I definitely recommend the Seahawk. I need to get a Blu-ray of this. I don't own it yet, but I will. And there's also a romance with one of the Spanish royalty women has kind of like a change of heart and realizes that she's on the wrong team, because I mean the British are always the good guys in British movies. So so that's kind of secondary. She kind of helps out a little bit in the end, in the final action scene. But yeah, it's great. I highly recommend the Seahawk. It's really cool.
Correct me if I'm wrong. That is directed by Michael Curtiz, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Errol, so he had a trilogy of films starring Errol Flynn. He did The Seahawk, Captain Blood, and Adventures of Robin Hood. And he would later go on to direct Yankee Doodle Dandy, which is a pretty good movie, and Casablanca, which is one of the all-timers. Michael Curtiz got it done. I've
seen all 3 of those. Those are the only 3 Errol Flynn movies I've seen. So maybe it's him. Maybe it's those 2 together that makes the magic, because I haven't seen any Errol Flynn movies that he didn't direct. So I don't know. I guess I'll have to check out some more. But that's interesting. I didn't know he did Captain Blood too. That's a great movie. I highly recommend Captain Blood too.
Anyways, this is all a great segue, because my number 2 is Adventures of Robin Hood.
There he is again. He deserves to be in the top 3 on both of our lists. He's great, especially for an adventure month.
Yeah. I have never seen an Errol Flynn movie before. I've never seen this movie before, and this was the last movie in this challenge that I watched. I watched it last night, where I was like, okay, like December is upon me. Time to watch this. And I won't have time to watch anything else before I record with DJ. Now. So I was like, okay, let's do this. Adventures of Robin Hood. Here we go. I loved this movie. I think that ever since I've watched it, I can't stop thinking about it and feeling excited when I think about it. Honestly, like, give me some time. This might be my number 1.
That's awesome. I'm surprised you liked it as much as it did, because it was at the very end after you'd already watched a month full of. That's just a testament to how good it is, because it's really good. Yeah,
there is a joyous euphoria, completely devoid of any irony, that is presented in this movie. It is so sincere and so good-humored and good-natured and fun. And it's like, this movie is basically just a kid's movie, and everyone who is making it and acting in it knows that. And nobody is phoning it in.
Yeah.
Like, everybody is seemingly just having as much fun as possible. There is some exciting fight choreography that is energetically captured. There is a shot that I actually had an audible reaction to where he went, oh! it was so cool, where Basil Rathbone, as the Sheriff of Nottingham, is sword fighting Robin Hood, and they're fighting and they go off, they shuffle off screen but it doesn't matter because the camera stays stationary and their shadows are then projected onto the wall, like in the middle of the frame. And then as the shadows dance off the pillar, they shuffle back onto the frame on the other side. And like, this is amazing. But there is basically, this movie is the ultimate who cares about the plot. It is just Robin Hood and friends just doing things. That's all it is. And it feels like episodic, where there's 10 to 15 minutes of how do we fill the next 10 minutes in the most fun and entertaining way possible. I don't know. We haven't introduced Friar Tuck yet. Let's bring him in. And then so there's a whole scene with Friar Tuck. There's this great bit where the bad guys are like, we need to get Robin Hood. How do we trick Robin Hood into a trap? I know. Let's host an archery competition. Like, it is so funny. And of course, and they're like, well, Robin Hood really seems to have a thing for Maid Marian. So whoever wins this, let's say Maid Marian will give them a golden arrow. He can't resist it now. And guess what? He can't. He shows up. And it is so great. Errol Flynn is so insanely likable. And Robin Hood as a character is kind of cocky and, kind of a bit of a troublemaker, but he is so charming, you don't even care. And there's a great bit where, like, and I think what makes him likable is there's a part where I think they're first meeting Little John, and Little John, like, stands his own and, like, bests Robin Hood in, like, a staff
Is that
fight.
the scene on the log? That scene stuck with me for some reason. That's a really funny scene.
It's a great scene, and, like, what happens is, like, Little John bests Robin Hood, and Robin Hood's response is to just laugh it off and say, I love a man who can best me. I'm like, this guy's great. And the romance is so sweet. The stunts are amazing. There's a part where Robin Hood, like, is at a gate and he cuts the rope, and, like, the gate that will drop is he's using as a counterweight to use as, like, the rope sends him up to the top of the gate. And it was like this really cool wide shot. And the bad guys are played by Basil Rathbone and what's his face, Claude Rains, who might be one of my favorite actors now. Claude Rains should be locked up. Well, they should all be everyone should be locked up for having too much fun. Nobody should be allowed to have this much fun in a movie, and everyone is just great. And the dialogue, come on. Are you speaking treason fluently? Yes! Basil Rathbone as the sheriff is, like, giving the best deadpan performance ever, where he's, like, reading all of Robin Hood's, like, wrongs, and then Robin Hood's like, well, I think you may have left one or two off there. And he's like, believe me, if I could put more on here, I would. It's so great. This is quotable. It's exciting. I've just been wanting to watch it again all day. I love this movie. My number 2 is The Adventures of Robin Hood from 1938.
That's so cool, man. I'm glad you finally got to see that. Was that on your original list? I don't remember us talking about that. I guess
it
was,
did. Yeah. And I'm honestly kicking myself for not. I now have put myself in a corner. I can't watch Captain Blood. I mean, I guess I can, but, like, not. I couldn't watch Captain Blood in time for this video, and I'm kicking myself because now I want to watch Captain Blood. I want to watch the Seahawk. I want to watch
the trilogy, man. Do the trilogy.
I want to watch all the Errol Flynn I can. I love this movie.
Yeah, I wonder, there should be a box set of Errol Flynn movies if there's not, because that needs to happen. All right, my number 2, because we are going pretty long. So I'm not going to talk too much about this one because we talked about it already, and I talked about it in another video. What video did I talk about this in? Maybe. Oh, I think I had already watched it when we did the first Adventure Thru November video. It is not this Ben-Hur, but it is the silent film 1924, 1925, Ben-Hur, A Tale of the Christ, which I now own because I bought the giant box set this month that I'll talk about this when we do our update video, but I'm so glad I finally own this, and I didn't even know that it came with the silent version until Connor told me about it last month, and that is what pushed me over the top and made me finally buy this, and I got it for a really good price. It was like $30 only on eBay. So I'm really glad I got it. You're probably surprised that this is this high on my list, actually, because I had kind of a big issue with it that I talked about in the last video, but it's great. Talk about an epic, silent. I mean, forget Die Nibelungen. I'm sure that's pretty epic too, but this is, like, crazy. The scale at this, like, are these location shots? They have to be, or are they all miniatures? Like, I think they were like shooting on location in overseas for some of it. I remember I looked into it a little bit. They were talking about it on TCM. But anyway, this is considered the most expensive silent film ever made, and you can definitely see that on film, I think. It looks awesome. It's a pretty faithful adaptation of the book. I think the main problem I have with this, and let me know what you think now that, because you've seen both. My main problem is that Jesus' story kind of takes over at certain points, and Ben-Hur kind of gets sidelined, or Judah gets sidelined for a little bit of it, and I think it hurts it so much that he doesn't even really get his full character arc at the end. He just gets kind of like, we see him have a change of heart, but we don't see him do anything. Like, is that in the 59 version? Like in the book, he devotes like the rest of his life to the catacombs of like the Christians in the early church and like that project. But like, we don't get that here. He just like sees Jesus walk by him and he's just like, what am I doing fighting for? Let me just change my ways. And then it's over. And then the movie ends. And it like, I don't know. I feel like they just put too much of Jesus' story. And like, I don't know if you've read the book that this is based on, but he's not really in the book. And that was why the Lew Wallace, the writer of the book, actually held out for this getting adapted for like a long time. And then he finally gave in because he didn't want anyone to portray Jesus on film. He thought there'd be like a bunch of backlash. And he didn't think that was a good idea. So he held out for a long time until I think there was a play right before this movie, like you said. And I think his fears were warranted because they put him in here so much, but they still don't want to have an actor play him. So it's just like his arm in a shot, or like like in shadow, or like silhouette, or like the back of his head or something. It's a little, I don't know. I think it gets a little awkward in some places. Is that the same way in the 59 version?
Well, I don't want to give stuff away,
you don't have
but
to.
like
I'm gonna watch it.
You don't see his face, but like it's more than just an arm. I'll say that.
Okay. Do you agree with me that too much of the story is taken up by that?
I guess so. I have not read Ben-Hur. I've gone to many a Barnes & Noble asking if they have it. They do not. And when we did our Adventure Thru November challenge video, you had said, I have plenty of copies. I could have just given you one when you came to visit. I don't know why that slipped my mind, but because the 59 version also kind of has like the death of Christ is like the climax of the movie.
Yeah, which is I mean that's valid.
And then it's kind of overish, but like I do think Jesus takes over the silent film at the end in a way that he doesn't in the 59 version. That's cool. So.
That's interesting. And also like the 1924 version has like a bunch of inaccuracies that the book doesn't have. Like he does, like the wise men are there when he's born for some reason. I don't know. They weren't supposed to be there till he was 2, but they just kind of like condense, like they just do like the stereotypes of, and it's like, I don't know. I like the book because it's really well researched and stuff. And this is just kind of like the Hollywood version of that in the 24 film. But I mean, it's still my number 2. Like it's still a great film despite all that, those hangups. Like I really enjoyed it. I think the what I will say, I like this. What this does better than the 59 version, which I haven't even seen, but I've heard about this, is in the chariot race is insane in this. The fact that it's the 20s and that chariot race is so intense is awesome. And in this one, Ben-Hur is like the scrappy guy that he is in the book. He's the one that sticks his thing in the tires of the other guy and flips his whole chariot and like crashes him. I think in the 59 version, it's like the other way around, where like the bad guy has like the things on his wheels and is like trying to play dirty, and like, no, Ben-Hur in this doesn't care. He's the one that is like playing dirty and cheating kind of and knocking over the other guy. So I like that he was a little bit more able to get kind of get his hands dirty, which I thought was interesting. But obviously I haven't seen the 59 version, so I don't get a say in the Ben-Hur in the Ben-Hur world. But I am looking forward to it. I finally own it now, so I can check that one out. And this was a great movie to. I'm glad I watched this one first because, like me, I'll probably watch the 50, like everyone else, I'll probably watch the 59 version and then forget about this one, unfortunately. But it's a good movie.
Well, yeah, I mean it is, and like that's where it's weird because like the chariot race is absolutely awesome, and it's very similar to the 59 version, but the 59 version is like 20% awesome. Like the chariot race is like one of like. There's a reason it's one of like the great action scenes of all time. Like it absolutely holds up.
Yeah, it's really cool. It just sucks that like if you have two really really great adaptations of the same material, you kind of got to pick one. It's like King. I mean, King Kong is kind of in the same boat. Obviously, I'll probably go back to the 33 version more, but I also like the 2005 version. So it's like, which one is shorter?
Yeah. and I will say. They're both better than the 2016 Ben-Hur.
Oh,
yeah. Just
I imagine so. I don't know what happened. Apparently, we just can't make sword and sandals movies anymore. They just don't. I don't know. They don't work anymore.
There's a law against them being good.
All right. What is your number one?
All right. My number one. This is probably a very predictable one. I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but it is Raiders of the Lost Ark. This is the first Indiana Jones movie from 1981, directed by Steven Spielberg, produced by George Lucas, story by George Lucas. What a solid movie. What a great movie. This is one of my little brother's absolute favorite movies, and I remember I was watching this with him, and when he hadn't seen it in many, many years, and neither had I, and he's like a senior in high school now, and he came on over to my apartment, and we watched it in the new 4K transfers, which look amazing, and when it was over, he just turned to me, and he was like, that's like a 10 out of 10, right? Like, best movie ever. Like, he's still, like, for him, he loves it. It is so cool. It is a really neat story. Like, obviously, all of the stuff that everyone likes about it is there. The action scenes are dynamite. The pacing is incredible. It's funny, it's charming, it's tongue-in-cheek, but like it still has edge and grit to it. It's like a tonal masterpiece. Like this is how you do tone. This is how you do pacing. This is like it makes you excited about movies, and the music is great. Harrison Ford is just such a likable actor. Like it's one of those things where I grew up watching Harrison Ford, and all those movies I watched him in growing up, I haven't been watching a lot lately, and going back to it, it's like that's like this guy. There's a reason this guy was a movie star and kind of continues to like have the reputation, even though he kind of phones it in. He doesn't have a Bruce Willis reputation because Harrison Ford is like legit, and his as Indiana Jones, he's excellent, and I don't know, like this is absolutely one of Spielberg's best films, but even like under the surface. What's cool about this is like there's a sort of self-awareness about how like this movie obviously is in love with the idea of the great adventure and serials and like people who went on in to basically raid tombs basically, and it sort of has like a self-awareness about that of maybe breaking into another person's culture to steal their stuff and then like present it in a museum maybe, and usually those people got money for it. Maybe that's not really a good thing, but like it does try to like present it as like it's more about like championing education, and that's cool. And then you have like the bad guy who is just like a guy who wants to steal people's history for money, and so like it does try like giving Indy that edge that other people don't, and that's what's cool. But even then, like having the story be about the Nazis trying to find the Ark of the Covenant, there's a whole subtext there about how like you have this oppressive force that is like subjugating this group of people, but also trying to like rip their own mythology away from them. You know what I mean? And like use the power of like Jewish mythology against the Jews. And then like, obviously the ending is iconic, but like it sort of has this delicious irony that is so brilliant. And then the final, like I never thought about this, but watching the movie this time, like after so many years of being away, the final shot is one of the great final shots in all of cinema. And I could go on that in a different video, but like that makes it a distinctly American film, the final shot of the movie. And it's a great movie. And I don't know, like Robin Hood is one of the most fun movies I've ever seen, but in Raiders of the Lost Ark is just like one of those things where it just, even today, you would kill to make a movie as fun but also thought-provoking as Raiders of the Lost Ark. It might be the best adventure movie that's ever been made. I love it.
Awesome. Yeah. You got people chiming off in the chat. You got John Henry popping in. Raiders of the Lost Ark is another 10 out of 10. Best Steven Spielberg movie, no competition. Brother Connor knows what's up. So he really appreciates you bringing that up. That's cool. My number one is a movie that I also don't own. That is called The Mark of Zorro, the 1940 version. This is actually one of the first ones I watched. Watched this with my son. He actually really enjoyed it. This is so much fun. Tyrone Power is every bit the swashbuckling superstar that Errol Flynn is. He's so charming in this. He nails... So if you're a superhero fan, particularly a Batman fan, like this pioneers so much of that stuff. He nails the whole like dual identity thing where he acts like a pompous like jerk face when he's being himself so that no one suspects him being Zorro. The whole Bruce Wayne thing, he does it better than I've ever seen it. It's so good. He's so like suave when he's coming like I don't even he's such a cool superhero. Like he is, this is like the proto superhero. He's like the beginning of it all. So it's all about he leaves town to join the military, and when he comes back, his father, who used to be running the country, is now retired, and there's a new guy, and he's just like raising taxes all across the board. Just wants as much money as he can get. All the people are like starving and living in just like slums, and he comes in and he's trying to. But what's so cool about it is he's trying to get rid of the guy. He's trying to overthrow him in so many different ways. Like first of all, he's going out as Zorro with the mask on, like just robbing. He's kind of Robin Hooding it up. He's like stealing from them and giving it to the kind of, there's kind of like a Friar Tuck stand-in character that's part of the like Catholic Church that he's working with. That's his friend, and he's like a confidant that he lets in and lets him know his secret identity kind of halfway through the movie. But he's doing that stuff, and then he's also like schmoozing it with the actual like ruler himself and his family. So he's like, yeah, you don't need to be here. So he's like talking to his wife, the guy's wife, and trying, because she likes all fancy things and whatever. So he's acting like he's from he's from another country. He knows all the what's hip and everything over there. So he's trying to get the wife to convince her husband to leave and go and to get out of there because she wants to live the high life. And then also he personally is kind of in a romance with the guy's daughter. And he's working from like all different angles just to save this little town. And he's so charming. He's I think one of the behind the scenes that I watched said that the choreographer said that Tyrone Power was even a better swordsman than Errol Flynn, like the only swordsman he worked with that was better than Errol Flynn. He's so good. There's this awesome fight at the end with Basil Rathbone, who's also the bad guy in this. He's like the main henchman for the bad evil ruler guy. And so there's like this crazy fight at the end. It's like lit. They're in this giant room lit by candlelight, and as Zorro is fighting this guy, he keeps nicking all the candles. He'll just like fight, hit one until it's like completely dark. It's such a cool scene. I really like that. Zorro jumps a horse off like a 50-foot bridge into water, which I didn't even know you could do. Like, I don't know. I think the horse made it. He swam. It looked like he was swimming away. I don't know. There's like this crazy stunts in this. This obviously starts all the stuff where he like draws the Z on things. Actually, I don't know. That might be there's like a 1920s Mark of Zorro too that I haven't seen. But I think this is the more well-known one. But this is great. I highly recommend it. This is one that I'm going to get on Blu-ray and watch again and again. Like I said, I watched it with my son, and it was a really good time. And it really set the stage for my adventure month because this was like the third one I watched. I think I watched Gold Rush, Ben-Hur, and then this, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's super good. You should finish your Errol Flynn trilogy and then move on to some Tyrone Power. I don't know if he did any other adventure movies like this. I know he did other things. He's in Nightmare Alley, right? You told me that. Mm-hmm. But he should have did more adventure stuff if he didn't. I'm sure he did because this is This is awesome. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I'm bummed I did not get around to watching the Mask of Zorro, the Antonio Banderas.
Well, that's
one,
kind of
but-
good because I think you should watch this first. I didn't.
Okay,
I saw
will.
Mask of Zorro first, which is still great. That's a great movie too. But this is awesome, completely separate, and I think it'd be interesting to watch them. This Mark of Zorro and then Mask of Zorro. That'd be cool. I forgot you had that on your list. That's a great movie.
And it was kind of funny because I had like a lot of boat movies, and I'm like, I'm not gonna watch Captain Blood, and I'm not gonna watch Master and Commander. Doggone it! What's that? And then Adventures of Tintin had a boat. And I'm like, oh, sweet,
Sweet. We got our one boat. Oh man, we did it. Whew. That was a behemoth of a video, but we talked about a ton of movies, ton of great movies. If you're in the comments, if you're in the live chat, watch any of the movies we recommended. I mean, I stand by Connor. I didn't like Temple of Doom when I watched it, but I'm sure I'll like it better now. But yeah, check out any of those movies. 20 movies we talked about. What in the world? Not to mention all the ones we rattled off at the beginning. But yeah, it was a crazy month. I think the movie challenges moving forward are going to have to be smaller. I don't know if we can go through 20 movies every time we do one of these. But although this one, I mean, sneak peek, in a few days we're going to shoot our Christmas monthly challenge for December, which is going to be a big one for me because I always watch a ton of Christmas movies in December anyway. So this is just going to be kind of an excuse to watch some newer ones that I haven't seen. Not newer ones, new to me, but I'll be watching through. Criterion has this Blue Christmas collection on the streaming service, and it's like Black Narcissus and a lot of like seemingly depressing movies, which is why it's called Blue Christmas. So I'm going to watch all of those. There's like a good bit on there, and then I'm going to watch some of my favorites that I always watch every year, like It's a Wonderful Life and Miracle on 34th Street. But anyway, enough about that because we're going to talk about that in another video. Thank you so much for watching this one about adventure movies. Anything else? Any nuggets of wisdom you gleaned from watching this many adventure movies in 1 month?
I just remembered another awesome thing about Adventures of Robin Hood.
You can't stop.
Una O'Connor showed up in it, and I was like, "Whoa!" Like I think I actually like jumped off the couch. She's in Invisible Man. She's in The Bride of Frankenstein. She's like the old lady who like can shriek, and it's always funny. She's in this movie, and it's always great when Una O'Connor shows up. Anyways, that's all I got. I'm excited to talk about Christmas movies and shift gears a little bit. I'm a little burnt out on exotic locales. You know, I'd like to bring it home.
Hey, Christmas is all about the home, and that's what we're going to be talking about this month. We're going to try to shoot that this coming up Sunday, or maybe a little earlier. I'm not sure. I have to talk to Connor about when we're gonna go live with the Christmas one. I got to school this guy on some Christmas movies because he has not seen. He said, and I'll say this in the other video. He said, pretend like I've only seen It's a Wonderful Life and Elf when I was recommending Christmas movies to him. Like, what? Okay, so I'm going to recommend a bunch. He's going to put together a list. I'm going to put together a list, and we're going to be back with you guys real soon. Thanks so much for joining us for this video. Let us know in the comments what your favorite adventure movies are, the ones that we missed, or if you just like radically disagree with us on any of our picks. Maybe our opinions are trash. All the Die Nibelungen fans of part 2 are going to come after Connor. Hopefully, if you're out there, please scream at him in the chat or in the comments. But anyway, thanks for joining us. If you enjoy these kind of monthly challenges that we've been doing where we watch new movies that we haven't seen before, hopefully you'll join us next month for December because we're going to be watching a lot of Christmas movies. So that's all I got for tonight. Thank you so much for joining me, Connor, and I will let the logo play us out. Bye, everyone.
Ciao.